This is TWiT.
Richard Prince, if you haven't heard of him, is an appropriational artist. He takes things that other people have, works that other people have made, and he tweaks them a bit and adds commentary and tries to shock a bit, and actually has been involved in a lawsuit already that he won that had to do with images that he appropriated from a book that was chronicling the lives of Rastafarians. And there were lots of photographs in there that were involved in this previous lawsuit where Richard Prince was found to have qualified for fair use under copyright law. That the work was transformative enough that the repackaged Rastafarian images were not infringing on the originals. So we talk about fair use quite a bit on the show, and I tend to be a big fan. But when you shift the context to someone's Instagram pictures, that's why Richard Prince is in the news now, is he's just participated in an art exhibit where his works consisted of other people's Instagram photos blown up, and the changes that were made had to do with commentary at the bottom, where the original comments were taken out and replaced with things that Richard Prince juxtaposed against the images. And these pieces were selling for $90,000 a piece. So I think this sort of takes fair use and makes people think about it a little differently. And, you know, I don't know if the outcome would be the same if one of the owners of the rights to these Instagram pieces were to sue. One of your colleagues, Patrick, Christopher Bucafusco, also from the Illinois Institute of Technology, has a piece at MSNBC where he thinks the fair use argument is actually stronger here than it was in the original case. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not to be controversial, but I actually wonder if the fair use argument is weaker than in the Cario case. So there's at least 2 points we need to consider when thinking about whether this is fair use. Of the four-factor analysis that fair use is based upon, the two most important questions are, one, was the use transformative under the purpose and character analysis? And second of all, does it harm the market for the original work? Now, if we look at the first one, the transformative issue, did Richard Prince add some form of new expression or new meaning to the original work? In Cario, in 25 of the 30 pieces in question, the court described Prince's reuse as adding a real new aesthetic. He really transformed the way the original photographs looked. In some cases, the original photographs were entirely unrecognizable. Has the same happened here? I'm not sure. I think this, from an aesthetic point of view, looks far less transformative. From an aesthetic point of view, is merely taking the photographs, blown them up, and added one or two lines of commentary underneath. So it seems to be less transformative in Cario case. Then the next question is the issue of market harm. Well, again, here the subtleties of fair use come out. So it depends on the works in question. If these works are from private individuals' Instagram accounts, my Instagram account, for example, well, there's no market for that. So by using these in the art gallery and selling them for $90,000, he's not likely to infringe any sort of market because there's no market for them. Okay. So that would suggest that the market harm factor goes in his favor, where the transformative factor seems to go against him. However, there's a further little twist to this, and there's the question of whether there is a market for some of the Instagram pictures that he has used. In particular, I was doing a little research on this, and he has copied quite a few pictures of a group of models called Suicide Girls, who are models and who do make a business out of selling prints of themselves. I don't know whether the print or whether the pictures on Instagram are photographs that they're going to sell, but if they are selling these pictures, then there might be a market for those pictures, and therefore Richard Prince may suddenly harm that market. So the fair use analysis is complicated, but if we say these are less transformative, and if in the case of something like Suicide Girls, where there may be a market for that, then there could be market harm. So for these reasons, I think this is a more complicated case than carry use.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that these appear to be less transformative. I don't know if I think that the market argument should carry the day here. That maybe this is a good example of existing copyright law colliding with existing technology and maybe not playing so well with it. That I think the people who took these photos anticipate that they have more control over their use than they might actually have under the law, and that maybe this is an area where the law has to evolve to take that into account, that maybe the market for their works needs to be looked at a little bit differently as a potential market, as something that involves maybe not precise proof of what they could make off of sale of the pictures. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that this is a collision of expectations here. These are not works that people licensed for use, as far as I know. So they were just flat out appropriated and transformed slightly. And the gloss of them being partially photographs of recognizable public figures like the Suicide Girls, that just makes it a, IP professor's kind of dream situation where they could also have you talk about the right of publicity that the subjects of the photos might have to object to their use. Lisa, any thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I thought this was a really interesting case because I followed the Prince and Carey case very closely as well. And, of course, some of the original paintings from the Carey case were remanded back to the lower court because they weren't seen as being transformative enough. I think that he probably might have a better case, actually, for transformativeness here than in the original one that might have been something that he thought about in this instance as well, because one of the things that he said in the original case was when they asked him, well, were you trying to make a parody on the Carey stuff? And he was like, no, I didn't really think about that at all. And here he's very clearly made comments about the pictures. So he's added that extra element deliberately that he didn't say he did deliberately with the original, with the Carey ones, with the Rastafarian photographs. So I think there's maybe an issue there. I think there's lots of ways that you can also approach the fourth prong, the market harm. If you look at sort of why are people posting on Instagram? What are they hoping to get out of it? Are they hoping that people will retweet, that they'll like it, that they'll be more widely disseminated? And in that case, there's sort of getting what they want by being included in this exhibit. But I think for sure, I mean, the right of publicity issues and so on really complicate this as well.